Hello everyone, and welcome to this audio podcast. This audio podcast is part of the Loop Remit series. This audio podcast is part of the Labosztix Bloca, as part of the Labosztix Bloca, and this audio podcast is part of the Labosztix View. This audio podcast is part of a Storm Labosztix production. Following the audio podcast, sort of introducing in around discrimination and ignorance. Ignorance as part of this, as part of peer-reviewed works. As part of peer-reviewed works, and this audio podcast will will delve into looking at discrimination and ignorance in around the evidence base. So, discrimination and ignorance. Discrimination and ignorance in line with in context of the evidence base. So from the UN Convention on Rights of Persons with Disability, UNCPD, discrimination is again defined as any distinction, exclusion, or restriction on the basis of disability which has a purpose or effect of impairing or nullifying the recognition, enjoyment, or activity on an equal basis with others of all human rights and fundamental freedoms. Discrimination in the United Kingdom is more explicitly defined as distinguishing differences between treating someone as inferior based on age, based on ethnicity, gender, health background, national origin, age, amongst other characteristics. There have been signs of developing a focus upon discrimination in within the literature, retrospectively, and there has been this at the same time have been seen as a consequence of stigma, which acts on the disadvantage of people who feel denounced. The importance of discrimination has been transparent for years in terms of personal, in terms of sort of lived experiences with those who have long-standing conditions or long-term conditions and or disabilities, and in around the sort of interrelationships, around, for example, additionally where, for example, pediatrics and young people are concerned, and around where parents and parenting, and childcare in around aspects around education, training, work, and amongst other aspects. There is evidence too directly from the health. There is evidence too directly from healthcare professions, and according to a poll commissioned by the General Medical Council, or GMC, in the United Kingdom, more than half of doctors who took part in a poll thought that patients with a disabilities receive a poorer standard of healthcare, and more than 1 in 3 doctors had reported that they had actually witnessed a patient with a disability receiving poorer care or facing some form of discrimination. This confirms Mencap's claim that the NHS, the National Health Service, is still putting lives at risk by failing to adhere to the UK Equality Act. And relating to discrimination at the same time is ignorance, and so which is a state of being uninformed or having a lack of knowledge. And the word ignorant is an adjective describing an individual or people in the state of being unaware. It is often used as an insult to describe individuals who deliberately ignore or disregard important facts. Ignorance can thus be defined as having a lack of awareness, education, or knowledge relating to people with disability or and or a a long-standing condition or long-term condition. A more honest admission, admission of ignorance might mean an increase in the awareness and understanding of real issues and concerns that patients have in context of in context of healthcare services. From this evidence, or from the evidence, there needs to be there needs to be an improved access to knowledge, especially where people with long-standing conditions or long-term conditions and or disabilities have challenges. In some, this means a focus upon human rights, upon discrimination and ignorance as actually experienced by people with a disability and or long-term condition or long-standing condition accordingly. That draws this audio podcast as part of this audio podcast as part of this Loop remit to a close. This being an audio podcast as part of a Labosztix Bloca, an audio podcast as part of Labosztix View, an audio podcast as part of a Storm Labosztix production.